Well met to all my forgotten adventurers and lost warriors, and welcome to Deep in the Dungeon, a little something where I like to take roguelikes and dungeon crawlers and try to bring them back up in the public eye. I am the great hero now lost in a collapsing timeline, Kingpin Cheshire, KC for short, and this month we're looking at Loop Hero, an auto-battler dungeon crawler with a very heavy emphasis on unit placement and deck building. Devolver Digital is going to be the publisher behind this game, and that's actually a really good sign with other great games such as Hotline Miami, Inscription, and arguably one of the greatest bullet hell roguelikes out there, Enter the Gungeon. With a roster as big as they have, and decorated at that, it can feel really difficult to find your own unique identity through it all, but I think Loop Hero actually does a pretty good job. It's got unique resource management with a really cool mechanic in deck building and some nice added elements of tactical RPG thrown without. So, I think we're finally ready to find out if Loop Hero is that weapon we've long been seeking to cut the timeline in half, or if it's just more of a common relic that's best left obscured and forgotten. Let's grab our gear and find out if this game is the one needed to help us as we explore deep in the dungeon. Let's go. So imagine one of those classic auto-battler adventure games from around the 80s. And trust me, if anyone's gonna know anything about those classic 80s Midway arcade games, it's some generic brown-haired white guy with glasses that was born in the mid-90s. Did I just out an entire group? But with a twist. Yes, that's right. Gambling addicts beware, because Loop Hero is what happens when you scratch that old school RPG itch, but add a refreshing element of a colony simulator, the way it lets you rebuild your forgotten village, a tactical RPG, how it lets you choose what threat goes where for each run, a deck building game where the cards are your landmarks and spawn camps, and it's all wrapped together quite nicely with this overall element of pushing one's luck, where at the end of every loop, oh fuck, so that's where the name came from! You can safely back out and take all of your gear and resources, or keep pushing and increase the difficulty for a chance to lose it all and only take a fraction of it with you. I don't think I'd call myself a gambling addict. No. More like fucking incompetent with finances is more fitting. But I do understand that risk versus reward kind of edge you get with gambling. For instance, I risked not paying rent for the past 2 months, and my reward, along with eviction, was a copy of Hot Wheels Unleashed on Steelbook. Nice. The point I'm trying to get here overall is that my resource management is acceptable at best. Loop Hero starts every run extremely simplistically. Once you've chosen your starting deck and your character, the game will procedurally generate your loop. Oh fuck, damn it! I just got done picking up those cards. And you're off. Now, aside from throwing some generic slimes your way to get the ball rolling, you're primarily in charge of the enemies, the resources, and the quests you face throughout each run. You know, it's kind of like in real life where you have to face the consequences of your actions, like not paying rent for 2 months. I'm gonna need a Patreon, aren't I? So each card or tile you place on your map has multiple uses and effects. Now, can we get more cards like that in Texas Hold'em? It's just my opinion. Not only do they subtly buff and debuff your hero, such as HP regen, max HP, better armor, better spawn rates, all that fun stuff, they can correspond to providing any materials you might be hunting for in your run. Most importantly, they are the sole contributors to what opposition you'll be facing in each run. My favorite examples would include the Vampire's Mansion, which guarantees every spawn within its reach will include fighting a vampire, which will often give you lifesteal loot when defeated. The Graveyard, which guarantees at least one skeleton every 3 days on your loop, and skeletons always drop very nice gear. So if the skeletons always drop nice loot, and I always have nice loot when I die, am I grave robbing myself? Do I give consent to this? Am I a felon? and the battlefield, which just, you know, drops a chest spawn every loop or so. And it can be a mimic, but that's part of the fun. Every tile also includes hidden synergies with other tiles as well as themselves to grant extra depth and rewards throughout every single run, while adding a layer of strategy when collecting and placing the tiles. Just a few examples I want to give without revealing some of the better synergies out there would be combining your rocks and mountain cards to form a 3x3 grid on your map to create a mountain range, now spawning harpies and collects a lot of resources every go. Spawning a vampire's mansion right next to a village tile will cause it to be a wasteland for the first 3 loops, spawning very difficult to defeat ghoul. Yeah, that reminds me, can we just all ignore the fact that I actively terrorize innocent villagers with vampire mansions? I mean, come on, everyone needs a hobby. But once survived, we'll turn to the Count's Land, which now does some great HP regen. And while it may seem obvious, placing items adjacent to the treasury, but also in diagonal, will cause it to crumble and now spawn gargoyles throughout your runs. The cards are one of the main draws that make this game really stand out, but that doesn't mean there aren't any other aspects that make it worthwhile. While rebuilding your village in the main hub, you gather resources from each run to use them on buildings, such as your farms, smithies, cemeteries, armories, and so on. In unlocking the facilities, it will help you unlock more cards to greatly change your runs and more classes to try out. There will be plenty of times where you'll be just a few resources short for a few recipes, especially if you like to ignore greater strategies and you end up treating the Grim Reaper like I do Postmates. Always and constantly right at my front door. I did state earlier in the video that I suck with finances, right? Okay, good. And I love it because you're able to completely swap your deck from one run to another to ensure you'll find more timber or iron or stone in this run compared to the last run. As you progress your village, you'll also unlock different classes you can use to add more depths of replayability to the game. There's, at the time of this video, 3 different classes you can use throughout every run. Warrior is the first class you're given at the start, and while they have no significant qualities per se, yeah, but they have a great personality. They're still a great pick for their largest health pool of the 3. Use both helmets and shields to increase their defenses, and there's a hidden buff of 2% extra damage per second while actively in a battle. Rogue can equip 2 separate weapons and use quicker attacks to deal more damage, while sadly taking a bit more due to their lack of defenses. The Rogue also has this unique looting system compared to the other 2, where you collect these trophies from fallen enemies, as opposed to your standard weapons and accessories. I mean, some people get all the praise, and I can't even get a damn participation ribbon. Justice. And at the end of a successful loop, the trophies then become equipment, making it easier to gather resources for your village because your inventory fills up almost immediately. But there is a disadvantage because you can't equip stronger weapons in the middle of a loop. And lastly is the Necromancer, who is my favorite class to play as, since their attack style is the most unique, where they spawn different types of ghouls to fight for them. Admittedly, they're also the safest choice too, because spawning other targets for your enemies to latch onto instead of yourself does make it easier to survive the fights. Oh, you fight for your friends? That's cool. My friends fight for me. Shit! The overarching goal here is to fill your board up with enough tiles, and survive said tiles, to summon the Lich, or as I call him, a very annoyed stepdad that just wants 25 minutes of fucking peace, but I can't find my juice box, so I'm gonna make it his problem. It's a long name, certainly fitting. The Lich is the Gucci god of melting memories that's responsible for your entrapment, and that's about the extent of the plot. Yeah, full disclosure, we don't really get that much insight on the Lich other than dude's got a nice overcoat and he's just known as the Lich, so he's a bad guy. That's about as far as we know. Who would have guessed that a game in which your world is completely erased wouldn't have world building as its biggest priority? I'm willing to give it a pass and overlook it because it's pretty clever that every run is kind of a new opportunity for world building and storytelling. The one run you can be the sole hero of your hometown who needs to constantly protect his village from Count Barnabas and his undead creatures from flooding into the town's only Applebee's and using expired coupons. I should write a book. But the next run, you can be a necromancer rushing the new frat, Rho Iota Pi, and to truly be accepted by the President Lich Daddy, you have to murder all the other fleshy frats and silky sororities. No, this is intentional. I'm stopping the flow of the video right here, right now. That stands for RIP, by the way. I went so far for this fucking joke. Why? Why did I fucking go so far for this? safe to say this game takes the same route of 20 minutes till dawn, and Death Road to Canada, where they focus so heavily on the gameplay that the whole story thing fell to the wayside. And honestly, I don't mind. Loop Hero is a very different take on the roguelike genre, but certainly not an unwelcomed one. Being able to construct a deck of possible tiles that can synergize with each other for each unique run, having secret interactions with different tiles and spawns, and the threat getting exponentially bigger with each passing loop, all blend perfectly into a truly unique experience that feels incredibly simple to learn, but damn near impossible to master. The very annoyed stepdad that just wants 25 minutes of fucking peace, but I can't find my juice box, might have laid a curse upon the layout of the villager's mind, but this is one gem that won't be forgotten quite so easily. Thank you all so much for watching episode 2 of Deep in the Dungeon. These are a lot of fun to make, and I'm really glad that you guys enjoy them as well. It's, you know, once again, a big dream of mine to be able to do stuff like this, and especially the people who really appreciate it. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, because that's where I will be doing a lot of my notifications, and mainly to follow me on my Twitch channel, because Twitch is where I go to get all the footage for these games, and that's where you can find me almost daily playing a ton of Dead by Daylight, and almost any kind of roguelike I can get my hands on. Thank you all for hanging out with us one more time. Hope you do leave a like on this video, and I will see you all next time you arrive deep in the dungeon. Take care, and stay smiling. Bye-bye.
I got one for the bros, one for the bros. I got two for the stones, two for the stones. I got three for the hoes, three for the hoes. We did it all on the home, all on the home. Hey, the game clapped, huh? Homunculus, I wanna pull up the with it, yeah, huh? I make my circle, they turn purple really fast, huh? A child prodigy, they calling me a brat, huh? They feeling envy for the kid, I'm on my rap shit. I cook them up, but they gon' lunch just like a mad bitch.